addiction. Now, this word has been paired with video games for as long as I can remember.
Gaming addiction is real and is so widespread.
Studies show those vulnerable are unable to stop playing even when it interferes with their lives.
Playing excessive video games will be classified as a mental disorder.
The media has always looked at video game addiction in a negative light. And the way they are looking at it, I understand where they're coming from. Normally they're talking about people that have completely neglected their actual life and devoted it all to a digital one. I get that, that's unhealthy, but how do we get here in the first place? How do we get to the point where a video game has taken over our lives? And if you're wondering from my past video, how does a video game become a job? How do people even let that happen? And if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out after this one. So how that happens are various aspects of games are designed by these companies to sink their hooks into your brain, whether you know it or not.
Man, get out of me! Get out of me! No.
They have all these little intricacies that they've learned from gambling, that they've learned from just brain chemistry in general, that will subconsciously get you addicted. Now, some of these games, it's interesting that you might not even find the game fun, but you still find yourself addicted to this game and wanting to play it. That's how well some of these triggers and hooks work. So let's dive into some of these hooks and discuss whether or not these different gaming hooks are nefarious or add a lot of fun to the game.
I've got to collect them all so I can become Royal Crown Chimpoko Master. Oh?
Buy all the Chimpokomon and you will have happy feelings.
The fear of missing out. The fact that fear is the first word in this hook obviously shows how this is a nefarious hook. In some ways, I guess you could argue that it could be used in non-nefarious ways, but pretty much every way FOMO is used in video games is to get money out of you and to hook you into continually playing the game. This applies to battle passes because of course they have deadlines, which again explains how a game can become a job because you're really not having fun anymore, but you're addicted to getting those items because you don't want to miss out on them because other people will have them and you won't anymore. You are going to miss out on those items if you do not participate in that battle pass. And yeah, maybe you're not playing that game a whole lot right now and you're not super interested in playing it, but what if you come back later to that game and you're not going to be able to have those items and everyone else around you is going to be able to have access to them, and that is where the fear of missing out really gets you. Most of the time you have to already be in the game a little bit, but once you start building your collection of items, once you've sunk a bunch of time into it, once you have really made this game a part of your life, now suddenly these events mean a lot more to you because you know this game's important to me, those items are limited, I want those limited time items in this game, those are important. And this artificial scarcity that the developers have created for these items have now taken over your priority. Your priority is no longer to have fun with this game, you are now hooked into their system, you want to get those items, and you feel like you need to get those items, so you log in and you play as much as possible. Pretty much every MMO ever has had FOMO as one of the main draws to the game. I mean, even as new expansions come out, even if there isn't really a real limited time event that they have created, you want to go and join people when these games come out, even games that aren't MMOs. You have that fear of missing out if you don't buy the game day one. A lot of people feel that way, which is why they have capitalized on this by creating different editions that let you play however many days early. And they're like, oh, get in early and start leveling up before everyone else because you don't want to miss out on that extra time and those extra levels to get ahead of everyone else, playing into FOMO once again. This is definitely a nefarious thing that video game developers have created.
I have spent a lot of time and I have eaten a lot of crap to get to where I am today, and I am not throwing it all away now.
The sunk cost fallacy is something that a lot of people fall victim to, myself included. I mean, I've done this with plenty of different things, and the way game companies really target this, it's just plain evil sometimes, because the thing is, when they want you to spend money in a game, they don't just want that one purchase. Yes, it's great that they're getting that money from you, but now that you have spent money on a free-to-play game, for example, now that free-to-play game suddenly has a cost value in your head. And the more you spend, and they know this, the more hooked you are. Imagine if you put a couple $100s into a game and you start feeling like, I'm not really enjoying this game anymore. But in the back of your mind, you're gonna be thinking, but I've already put hundreds of dollars in this game. If I leave this game, stop playing it, and uninstall it, I will have wasted those hundreds of dollars. And that's where they get you. A lot of these different games, they do want to hook you, they do want you to spend money, but they don't want you to spend money for the sake of spending money. They want you to be on the hook, and now you're stuck mentally with this game because you feel like you have to keep playing it because you've spent X amount of dollars on it. And I get that feeling. I really do. I mean, when I quit World of Warcraft back in the day, I'd put so much time, which by the way is another part of the sunk cost fallacy. I had been playing for so long that it felt like all of that time would go to waste if I'd stopped playing the game. All that money I spent on expansion packs and all that time and money I spent on the monthly fee would go to waste if I stopped playing the game. Now, after a while, I did stop playing. It only works on some people for so long. The game just kind of got boring after a while, and there was nothing they could really do to keep me in, no matter how much money I'd spent on it and how much time I spent. But because I had done that, there was that initial resistance. And that amount of resistance, if you have any at all, to be unable to stop playing a game, that is where that addiction can really keep cycling, because now your time, your money has been invested into this product and you feel like you can't quit. There are so many games out there that are trying to do this to you, and it's just sad to see, because the sunk cost fallacy, the reason it's a fallacy is because you are wasting even more time and even more money on this product that you are no longer enjoying. That happens with TV shows. A lot of people will watch a certain amount of seasons, or they'll watch a certain amount of movie. They'll go, I've already gotten this far, I might as well just finish it. Now, with free-to-play games and MMOs and things like that, there is no end, so you just think, I might as well keep playing, and there's no end to that, so it's just indefinite. And that's where video games especially are a lot more insidious than TV shows and movies, where you have that sunk cost fallacy and they have infinite potential to waste infinite time and money. So, sunk cost fallacy, is it nefarious? I would say when it comes to money, yes. And I would say time, sometimes, because sometimes there is just a lot of content and it's like your own head thing. They're not trying to make that an addictive element. It's just in your own head. It's become, I've put all this time in here, I have to keep playing. That's kind of on you at that point in most cases. So I would say it's about 50-50 with whether or not that this is a nefarious hook. Gambling mechanics. Again, that first word, gambling, nefarious, 100%, because there are loot boxes. And here we go. What do we get? There are gacha style things. There are card packs. It wants to hook you into that monkey brain of ours that just likes chance. We just like not knowing what we might get. We love being surprised, and it is almost always nefarious. Now, gambling mechanics you could look at as random loot drops, like in Diablo, for instance. That's not really monetized. That's a constant slot machine that is playing whenever you are defeating bosses, opening chests. That's fine. But any sort of randomized purchase, which is normally done with real money, is just the worst, because it preys on people that already have that gambling addiction. It preys on the fact that pretty much everybody likes getting those different surprise things. We love being surprised. And it also ties into a lot of these different hooks tying together. Wouldn't you know, it ties into that sunk cost fallacy, because once you've spent enough money trying to get whatever it is that you want, you're going to think to yourself, I've already spent this much. I might as well keep rolling. I might as well keep opening loot boxes, opening packs, because you know what? I've already spent this much. I might be there already. If I stop going now, man, I could just, the next time I open it, it could be it, and I've spent all this money for nothing. That is the worst form of addiction hook. And finally, I'm so glad they got rid of most loot boxes in games, but they definitely still exist in sports games. And somehow CSGO has gotten away with literal gambling, because those loot boxes are just a slot machine. I would say essentially or basically, but they are a slot machine because you actually get real world, real money value out of the things you open in those boxes. You can potentially make hundreds of dollars. If you open a knife or some rare skin, you could make a lot of money. You can turn that into real world currency, which I don't understand how that's even legal. But what's even more interesting is that these gambling mechanics still work in games where you cannot exchange those items for real world currency. They have absolutely no real value to them. You can't exchange them with anybody else. You're stuck with them forever unless you sell your account to somebody, which is always against the rules, can get you banned, a bunch of things like that. You're just spending money on items. You can't exchange it for anything else. But it preys on that thing in your head, and it wants you to continue to do it. It wants you to mix your gambling addiction with your sunk cost fallacy and just get hooked. And there are plenty of games that take advantage of this. And so, I mean, gambling mechanics when it comes to actual loot in a game, or fake gambling where it's not real money, it's like in-game currency that you can't actually buy with real money. There's zero way to actually spend money on whatever gambling mechanic is in the game. I would say that's fine, but everything else, if you can pay real money for it, that is a nefarious, awful hook that preys on people with real addictions that already exist outside of video games.
Oh, yep, that'll do, yep.
This is a hook that a lot of people are not going to think of, and that's sound. Yeah, sound? What? How in the world is sound going to make you an addict? Well, we're going back to gambling again. That's how slot machines and different forms of gambling really hook players. It's not just the element of I might win a bunch of money. They've also fine-tuned the sounds of these machines to trigger something in our brain to make us just want to keep playing. I mean, the sounds of loot boxes, the sounds of unlocking things in a battle pass, the sounds of leveling up, which I would say, I mean, leveling up in games can just explode your brain with dopamine. I mean, all of those happy chemicals are triggering after hearing all those sounds, especially if you remember them from your gameplay experience. And that could be a form of nefarious when it comes to loot boxes and making that sound amazing. Like, again, Overwatch, it's got this triumphant theme whenever you open something. And then not nefarious when it comes to just leveling up. It's just an exciting sound. It's just something that really gets you going and makes you want to keep playing the game because you want to hear that sound again. And I wanted to include this on this list because it's something a lot of people don't think about, but it is something that has been very finely tuned and engineered specifically to make your brain pump in those chemicals that make you happy and want to hear them again. I know it's silly, but that's how our brains work, and they know it.
Hooray! I just reached level 987413 in Mouse Quest.
So sound plays right into this one, level systems. You can't have a level system without sound, I would argue. And level systems in themselves, they're connected to other things going on in those hooks. They have other hooks implied with them as well, such as the sunk time fallacy. Because, on this specific level, I've put all this time into it, I'm level 100, whatever, I better keep playing, otherwise all that time is wasted on getting to that level. But the level system in itself is a form of addiction. I love RuneScape, and I'm probably having RuneScape music playing in the background right now. I did my last video as well, because it was such a critical part of me growing up and playing video games, and I was very addicted to RuneScape because I loved leveling up. I mean, most of that game, like I said in the very beginning, some of these games, they're addictive, but they're really not that much fun when you really boil down what the game is. RuneScape, the things that I used to do, like mining, fishing, cooking, woodcutting, all of these different things are not inherently fun, but they're addictive. So your brain is telling you that they're fun, even though if you boil down what you're actually doing, which is clicking on an image of a tree and watching your little man go like this, and then having to go back to a bank, drop off the logs, and then go back and do it again. This monotony of just clicking things, clicking rocks, clicking trees, even the combat in the game is just clicking something. And yeah, there's like a couple, there's spell casting, there's prayer, and there's a couple other things that go into that, but it's mostly just clicking and watching and going like this until the animation is played out and either it's dead or you're dead, or the tree is cut down and your inventory's full, and then you do something else. But most of that game is not a whole lot of anything. Same with idle games. I get very addicted to idle games, but they're not good. They're not fun, really, but they are at the same time because they have all these different level systems that are highly addictive to people like me who love progression. I just love progression in games, even if it's just numbers going up, which is just the most basic form of progression system ever. And yet it's somehow still addictive, it's somehow still fun, and it keeps me coming back to these games even though I know my brain is just addicted to this very basic thing. And I would say for the most part, level systems, if we're looking at whether they're nefarious or not, most of the time they're not, unless they have been engineered, like some of the Assassin's Creed games where progression is so slow that you then buy time-saving things that increase your XP, which make you level up faster. There are different ways that you can make a level system nefarious, but by itself, a level system is not a nefarious way of addiction, but it is definitely something that is very addictive and has definitely hooked me to a lot of different games.
Butters, go buy World of Warcraft, install it on your computer, and join the online sensation before we all murder you.
Oh, all right then.
One of the last things I want to talk about, the social aspect of games. It's hard to say that this is a form of addiction, but this is definitely something that hooks people into games. I hate bringing up World of Warcraft all the time, but really any MMO with some sort of guild, now you have this sort of social contract that you've made with these people. And let's say you have a dungeon or raid or some sort of event night that you have created yourselves. The developers that have created this event, they don't have anything to do with this, but your social interaction, your social contracts that you've created have hooked you to this game. And if you leave this game, you may never talk to these people again. And because of that, you can't leave this game because you almost have the sunk cost fallacy of friendships in that regard. Because, yeah, you may lose out on these friendships, but like if you really haven't added them to Discord, you don't talk to them outside of the game, you only talk to them inside the game, really what are you losing at that point? But a lot of people don't cross that outside game barrier and they want to keep those social interactions going, so they're hooked. They have to keep playing or they'll never talk to these people again, and they're hooked and addicted to that social interaction because that's what we need. We're social creatures. Even people that are introverts still need some sort of social interaction stimulation because we are social creatures. It is in our brain that most of us, not all of us, but most of us need some sort of social interaction. Even if it isn't in person, even if it isn't over voice and it's just typing, that is enough to satiate that need for connecting with other human beings. And that is something that that social element really can hook people with. So let me know what you guys think about this list. If you have more ideas, please drop them down below. Tell me about the most addictive games you've played. Like the video if you guys liked it. Subscribe for more content and check out my video about video games as jobs. Have a fantastic day. See you, everybody.